What's up, curious readers? I'm Dev from Dev's Book Summaries, and let me tell you something interesting. I've been reading about the FBI since the past 1 week. The FBI is basically the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and they are the intelligence and security service for the United States and its federal law governing agencies. The FBI was founded all the way back in 1908, and their headquarters are in Washington, D.C. So the FBI basically works with the police force to solve and investigate crimes. The book I've been reading about the FBI is FBI Heroes 10 True Tales. The author is Allan Zullo, and the publisher is Scholastic. So this book is about FBI special agents solving some of the world's hardest crimes, and these are 10 true tales. So the author Allan Zullo is also the author of 100 other nonfiction books ranging from sports, supernatural to history and animals. The author lives on a mountain near North Carolina, and if you want more information about this author, you can visit his website, allanzullo.com. Let's get to the summary. These are 10 true stories again. So the first story is basically about a terrorist whose name is Hossam Smadi, and he was basically just about to bomb Fountain Place in Dallas. He was about to blow up the building to show his loyalty to Al Qaeda. So Al Qaeda is basically like when people pledge their loyalty to Osama bin Laden, the founder and organizer of the terrorist foundation, and or like other people or terrorists connected with him. This guy was about to bomb Fountain Place, but the FBI special agents worked together, and they got with him, and then when the moment he was about to blow up the building, right that moment before it, they arrested him on September 24th, 2009. That's the basic of the first story. And the second story is about a woman who has a 4-day-old baby, and his name was Baby Year. He was kidnapped in Nashville. This another woman just came in the mom's house, and she barged in, and she just kidnapped the baby and took her away. And by the time the mom reacted, it was too late because the baby was gone and the mom was already stabbed and injured. But the FBI solved the case, and they found the baby in they brought the baby back home, and they found the baby in Ardmore, Oklahoma. The kidnapper's name was Tammy Silas, and she was found with the baby in Ardmore, Oklahoma at her home. Because she was basically just trying to adopt a baby, but she ended up kidnapping a baby instead of adopting one. The FBI arrested her. And on to the third story. So the third story is about a man named Thad Roberts. So the third story is about Thad Roberts, who was trying to steal moon rocks he stole from a safe in Johnson Space Center in Houston. Roberts stole these rocks, and he took help from 3 other people: Tiffany Fowler, Gordon McWhorter, and Shay Soar. Obviously, he didn't use his real name when he was trying to sell it, so the fake cover name he used was Orb Robinson. The FBI arrested him when he was in a parking lot when he was just going to sell it. On to the fourth story. The fourth story in this one, Special Agent David Nunes, he has to find 2 killers. In the afternoon of September 23rd, 2007, a fishing boat named Joe Cool left from the dock of Miami, Florida, with two passengers and a four-member crew. So the vessel was actually supposed to reach to an island, but the vessel never reached its destination. The families that were waiting for their family members at the destination reported that the ship never came. So when Coast Guard looked out for the ship, they found it north of Cuba, which is like around 90 miles off its intended course. So from like they could tell that since there was like blood splattered around and guns and like knives here and there and all the mess on the boat, they could tell that there had been a violent struggle and they couldn't find the crew, but they rescued two men floating in a life raft like somewhere around the ship, and those two men actually were the passengers for the ship. So they were their survivors' names were Kirby Archer and Guillermo Zarabozo. So basically, these men seemed suspicious to the FBI, because like when the FBI questioned both of the men separately, one man, said that both of them said that Cuban pirates had raided the ship, but their version of like the events were different. So the FBI thought like these were the murderers, and they suspected these two. So, and their suspicion was correct, and after more investigation, the FBI figured out that these two were actually the murderers, which is, so, the whole true story was, never told by the murderers, and the FBI couldn't figure out the whole thing either. So, these two, didn't even tell that to the FBI, but the court sentenced them to a bunch of years in jail, and they got arrested. So thanks to the FBI. So the fifth story, we're almost there, halfway through. So the fifth story is about a woman, Barbara Joan March. So she was basically sending letters to the U.S. Supreme Court, the director of the FBI, and a deputy director of the FBI. So these letters basically contained home baked food, or a piece of candy like that was attached to the letter, and FBI lab investigators figured out that these cookies and candy were actually coated with rat poison, which is kind of weird if you ask me, because I don't think anyone should be doing that, but yes, it's true. It was laced with rat poison. So so when the FBI just asked a bunch of people, and they had suspected, and then when they showed the list of the people, it was named with the mailing address. They showed it to one person, and then she said something that got the FBI's attention. So the FBI basically solved the case with that and arrested Barbara Joan March. She called herself Bobby March. So yeah. And so we have 5 stories down. We got 5 more to go. In case you're bored, I just found 5. I found 2 or some jokes online that are related to reading. I'm just gonna tell them to you right now. So why do words and punctuation always end up in the court? That's related to what we're talking about. So they words and punctuation always end up in court to be sentenced. You get it? They go into sentences. So and when you read a book about anti-gravity, you just can't put it down because it's anti-gravity, obviously. So let's move on to the next story. So the 6th story is basically about 8-year-old Jennifer Stewart being kidnapped, or murder attempted. So when she was 8, she always slept with her mom because she was scared of the dark and stuff. But one night she got sick, so her mom sent her to her room down the hall. So that night she slept with the light on because she was scared of the dark. And then there was this man who was driving around the complex, and he saw that light was on even though the curtains were closed. He could see a little, he could see through a little gap in the curtains, and he saw that there was a balloon. So he thought it was a girl's room, and he just made a random attack. For some reason, he just went up there, and he snatched the girl out of her room. He said that she was gonna be okay, but he choked her. And then he thought she was dead, and he left her over there. But then she somehow survived. And then the next day, when her classmates were playing soccer outside, they found her, and then they told the police, and like they called some adults. The adults told the police, but they could never figure out who did that. The kidnapping happened in 1990. So no one ever figured out. The case was closed for 20 years. 20 years later, an FBI agent came in. He was invited to help solving the case because Jennifer Stewart was saying that she wanted to meet the person who did this to her. So in the morning when the police took her, her voice box was damaged, so she couldn't talk. That's a lot of damage the kidnapper did there. So she couldn't talk, so the police they just set her to blink once for yes and blink twice for no. So she did that to answer all the questions for the police. And the police artist sketch the police artist also drew a sketch by just when Jennifer just scribbled down notes for him. And then after 20 years later, when they found the kidnapper, his name was Dennis Earl Bradford. So this guy, when they checked his picture from 1990, they couldn't believe it, but the picture was exactly just like the police artist sketch. And the police and the FBI were surprised because this little girl who couldn't even talk made such an accurate description of her attacker just by scribbling notes, which is kind of surprising. And they also thought it's a big deal that she survived, depending on how much damage was done to her. So they say she was lucky that she survived. So they arrested Dennis Bradford after that in 2010. And so we're moving on to the next story. So the seventh story in April of 2001, some boys found like a bunch of hidden stash when they were building a fort out in the woods. So when FBI special agent looked at it, he like every single location had something written F7. So he was thinking what it could be. In this case, is basically about a Friday night bank robber. So that special agent had been looking out for this bank robber since a long time. So he thought, and he figured out that it said Friday 7 p.m. So he could figure out that it said Friday 7 p.m., which is basically most of the bank's closing times. So this guy, his name was Carl Gugasian. He would attack. He would go to those banks on Fridays when the rush was the least on closing time, 10 minutes before closing time, and he went there and he robbed banks. So the FBI found more bunkers close by over there, and they tracked this man down and they arrested him, Carl Gugasian. So the next story is about two jihadists. Again, they were doing Al-Qaeda and terrorism stuff. So their names were Ehsanul Siddiqui and Syed Ahmed. So these two were basically traveling over to Afghanistan, Canada. So basically Canada reported suspicious activity from these guys, and they just said that they were staying with someone. So one man said that he was staying with his aunt, but the other said that they were staying with friends. So the FBI kind of got suspected these two. So they started tracking him, and but since some of them traveled to Afghanistan and out of country, they couldn't track him. So he said that he went to one of them, and whenever they went out of country, they said that they went for some educational things or something. But later, when the FBI found out, it turned out they were taking terrorist training. They were going to terrorist camps and stuff. And before these guys to do something big, in Canada also, they were just making videos and looking around for places to bomb, which is dangerous. So the FBI just caught these people, these two, Ehsan al-Sadiqi and Syed Ahmed. They caught these two people and put him in jail. They locked him up. And then the next one, the ninth story, is about Giancarlo Ferreira and Martinez. These two were basically, these two kidnapped a house. These two so Ferreira was basically working for the I keep forgetting, but he was working for like a rich businessman. He was like a valet driver and things. So the family was Arago. So Ferreira was working for the Aragos, and they were pretty rich, so they had like valet drivers and stuff. So one night when there was a Christmas party, the Arago family came home, but the dad and the oldest daughter stayed at the party because they wanted to stay a little longer. So this Ferreira had actually planned to kidnap them, the Arago's father, because he was the main rich person in the family. But when the people came out of the car that night, he could only see mom and two sons, a baby, a young son, and the mom. So he made a quick decision to kidnap them instead of the other big daughter and the father. So he decided to do that, and after he kidnapped them, he took him to a house, and he tasered like all of them while trying to, because they were trying to run and stuff. The little guy, the junior, and the baby were injured, but not as badly as the mom, because they beat up the mom and her face was swollen and all that. So that was kind of bad stuff they did there. That was pretty violent. But so anyways, so they took him to this house somewhere close by, and then they hid him in like a dark room, and then in a while they just forced the mom to say some things on the call, because and the FBI was alerted, so they were working on the case. So the polygraphy test the FBI does, this Ferreira, because since he was an employee, he failed it. So they started suspecting him, and so once the SWAT team once like one time the dad held the mom longer on the call, so the FBI could tell their location. They pinpointed the location exactly, and they figured out that the mom and the sons were hidden in a house. So the FBI took the SWAT team, and they got into the house. They raided it, and they arrested Ferreira and a guy called Martinez. So they arrested those two, and they also arrested someone else, a bunch of other people who were involved in the kidnapping, and they rescued the mom and everyone. The little one came over the emotional things that had happened to him, and the baby was too young to remember anything about it, but the mom had to go through a bunch of treatments to like get all the face scars and all that off her thing, because she was injured badly. So that's the 9th story. And the 10th story is basically about a father-son spy team kind of thing. So basically so this man, he used to work for, he was a spy for the United States, His name was Nicholson. He was a CIA officer, but then one time he became a traitor to his own country. He got with the Russians, and then he asked them for money, and he just started dealing with them. So he got arrested. So one day, when his son came to meet him, they're not allowed to give notes and stuff. So they smuggled out a bunch of notes with his son, and he made his son do the work for him, and they used undercover code languages and stuff, so the FBI couldn't understand them. But soon enough, the FBI, as usual, they cracked the codes, and they figured out what they were up to, and then they arrested Nicholson and his son Nathan Nicholson. So they gave Nathan another chance after a while, and he studied engineering, but Nicholson, the Jim Nicholson, the dad, he got arrested, and he got sentenced to a bunch of years in prison, and then yeah, so he had to apologize to the Russians and everyone because he was dealing with them, and to his country also. So thank you, and that's the new book I've just read, FBI Heroes: 10 True Tales by Allan Zullo, published by Scholastic. So you guys can check this book out anywhere if you want. Maybe go to a library to read it, or you can buy the book. And if you want to know more about the author, AllanZullo.com. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next week.